Today is April 13th, 2026, and this is Read Through the Bible.
Hi, everyone.
One of my favorite times of the year is when the weather breaks and it gets nice and warm outside. And after church on Sunday, as we're hanging around and just talking with each other, we get to spill outside.
Yeah, that's always so nice. And
Yeah.
we're thankful for the yard that we have, the big field, and the kids go out and play, and the parents go out and talk. And
it's just beautiful.
It's refreshing.
Yeah, kind of. Today, yesterday was the very first day that we had that. It was really nice.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, so we are starting something new today. We're starting the book of Job.
Right. So we just finished Romans.
Yeah.
And now we're bouncing back to the Old Testament, picking up where we left off, because we left off at Esther. Mm-hmm. And so now we're in Job.
And this is one of the most difficult books of the Old Testament.
It's poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there makes it a little less straightforward.
Yep.
It's not narrative, it's not prophecy, but it's poetry.
Yeah. And furthermore, each chapter, it's difficult to know exactly what is being talked about. Mm-hmm. So Job is a story about a wealthy and righteous man who Satan says, well, God, he's only worshiping you because you blessed him. God says, not true. And so he says to Satan, have at him, just don't touch him. And so in chapter 1, he takes away his possessions and his family, but yet Job stays true. And then in chapter 2, Satan strikes his health, and Job holds fast. And then he's visited by these three friends who then have a dialogue back and forth with Job, beginning in chapter 3 and following. They just kind of talk back and forth, dealing straight on with a question about evil.
Right, right. And they're all trying to figure out, if Job is so righteous, why is he suffering?
Yeah.
And Job contends that he is righteous,
Right.
but God's unfair.
Yeah.
And the friends contend that Job is not righteous, and he's lying.
And therefore he's being punished.
And that's why
for it.
he's being punished. So, and they spend a long time discussing those questions.
Kind of meanders around and around and around. But it's so helpful that the Bible confronts this problem of evil just head on. And we're going to see it in Job as they wrestle with just how this all works.
Yes, and by the end of the book, we really have a very valuable treatise on God's perspective on suffering.
Yes.
And in light of who he is. And, so.
Okay, so the first 3 chapters of Job are pretty easy. That's today. We get into the thick weeds tomorrow, and we will help you through that. So let's begin with Job. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, and very many servants. So this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. His sons used to go and host a feast in the house of each one on his day, that is, on his birthday, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when the days of the feast had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did continually. Just shows his care for his family when they are partying and maybe they've done something wrong. Job is interceding and offering sacrifices just to even make his sons and daughters, as much as is capable of him, righteous.
Right. Okay, verse 6. Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, from where have you come? Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down on it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil?
Okay, so this is super crucial that in this heavenly conversation between Satan and the Lord is the one who brings up Job. Just, hey, look at Job. Look at how righteous he is. He serves me.
Okay, verse 9. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord.
Just seeing how sovereign God is here. He he gives Job into Satan's hand, but he's like with a hedge around him.
Right.
You can just take all that he has, but you can't touch him.
Yeah.
Okay, verse 13. And this is disaster upon disaster upon disaster. 4 messengers are going to come declaring these 4 disasters. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And there came a messenger to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them. And the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword. I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 groups and made a raid on the camels and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another, this was the 4th messenger, and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and behold, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young people, and they are dead, and I alone have escaped to tell you.
Wow. So 4 things right in a row there. The oxen were killed, the sheep were killed by fire, the camels were killed by the Chaldean swords, and the wind knocked down the building and killed his sons.
Yep, and then here comes the climax, verse 20.
Verse 20, then Job arose and tore his robe and shaved his head and fell on the ground and worshipped.
Yep.
And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. So he began Job chapter 1, how blameless and upright he was, and at the end, in verse 22, he did not sin or charge God with any wrong.
Right, that's verse 1 and verse 22 of chapter 1.
But in terms of his summary, you got this conversation between God and Satan, and then Satan takes away his possessions and his family. So you got to really reduce that down. I think some is Job is blameless. Satan then takes away his possessions and family. That would be a kind of a short summary. Okay, in chapter 2, we see Satan taking Job's health, and we see the arrival of Job's friends.
Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, from where have you come? Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down on it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears the Lord and turns away from evil? He still holds fast to his integrity, although you have incited me against him to destroy him without reason.
So God said, Satan, you're the one who incited me to destroy him, even though it was Satan was the one who destroyed him. It's just interesting. You see the sovereignty of God. God didn't strike Satan, and yet he let Satan do it, but yet he considered himself that he did it. So he was able to inflict harm and ill, even though he didn't do it.
And he's paying attention to know that Job still holds fast.
Yes, yes.
Verse 4, then Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin. All that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your hand. Only spare his life.
So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took a piece of broken pottery with which to scrape himself while he sat in the ashes.
Then
painful boils is what this is, all over his body.
Then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die. But he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips.
It's super crucial here that Job didn't sin with his lips. Chapter 1, verse 22, Job didn't charge God with sin or with wrong.
And 1:1, he was a blameless and upright man.
Yep. Okay, so here come his friends. Verse 11. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all the evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. Now, so these are the 4 characters mostly in this story. It's Job, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. Now they made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. And they raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their head toward heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. So, like here in chapter 2, basically we see Satan striking Job's health, and Job's friends arrive. There's more to it, right? He holds fast, and the Lord speaks of Job's righteousness with Satan. Satan strikes his health, and Job holds fast, and Job's friends arrive, and
his wife.
And his wife, yep, you got to get that in there too. So
says, curse God and die.
Yeah, so there's lots to put in there, but it's pretty simple. Basically, it's mostly his health. So in chapter 1, it was his property and family, and here in chapter 2, it is his health.
Right, and then his friends arrive. So.
Yeah.
Okay, chapter 3.
Okay, so this one is just in terms of a key thing. The ESV says Job laments his birth. I think verse 11 just says it really nicely. It says, why did I not die at birth? That's going to be the theme here. So he's suffering so bad, he just says, boy, I wish I never were born.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so all of chapter 3 is just focused on Job's words. And then as we start getting into the rest of this, we'll talk about who is speaking.
Yep.
That's always what we need to look for. So in this chapter, in chapter 3, it's Job. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job said, let the day perish on which I was born, and the night that said, a man is conceived. Let that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor light shine upon it. Let gloom and deep darkness claim it. Let clouds dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. That night, let thick darkness seize it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Behold, let that night be barren. Let no joyful cry enter it. Let those curse it who curse the day, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. Let the stars of its dawn be dark. Let it hope for light, but have none, nor see the eyelids of the morning, because it did not shut the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide trouble from my eyes. All of that is about the day he was born.
Yeah. Kind of retrospect, like that one night.
Yeah.
And who knows how old Job is. He's got all these old teenage sons, so he's, teenage high school for
60?
married friends. Yeah, maybe 60. I don't know. And he's thinking about that day so long ago. And then here's verse 11, I think was a great summary. Why did I not die at birth? Come out from the womb and expire. Why did the knees receive me, or why did the breast that I should nurse? For then I would have been lain down and been quiet. I would have slept, and then I would have been at rest. With kings and counselors of the earth who rebuilt ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or why was I not as a hidden stillborn child, as infants who never see light? There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners are at ease together. They hear not the voice of the taskmaster. The small and the great are there, and the slave is free from his master.
Verse 20, why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter in soul, who long for death, but it comes not, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes instead of my bread, and my groanings are poured out like water. For the thing that I fear comes upon me, and what I dread befalls me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, but trouble comes.
Okay, so there's launching into just the depth of his suffering, I think, is kind of the point here. He just says, I wish I never would have been born because my suffering is so bad.
Yeah, I wish I'd never been born. I wish I had died at birth. I wish I didn't have any light. I just long for death.
Yeah. Okay, we have started the book of Job, and hopefully with our guidance through this, you'll be able to get through and have a better understanding that you had of this book before we started reading. That's our hope.
Okay.
Okay, we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.